Welcome to Lumbridge Knight's guide for the new Camdozaal Dungeon. This guide is going to show you how to crush all of the new game mechanics, the new Vault Run, the fishing and prayer offering, the mining, and how to fight some golems, and also what drops and rewards you can expect. So keep watching if you want to crush the Camdozaal Dungeon. Well met, adventurers. I'm the Lumbridge Knight, your guide to all things old school Runescape. Blessings of Saradomin be upon us as we venture forth. Here we are outside of the Camdozaal Dungeon. I'm sure you know where this is, but just for clarity we're going to go through it on the map. It is just north of Faldor on the west side of Ice Mountain. It's really easy, but in order to access this area you need to complete the Below Ice Mountain quest, which is a very simple quest that can be done by characters of any level. There's also a quest guide which I'll pop up on the screen for anyone who's struggling or just wants a helping hand to get it done quickly. Before we jump in, don't worry about the items you see my character holding in his inventory. You can pick up everything you need within, and there's also a usable bank, so you don't really need to bring anything with you. We're now going to get straight into the dungeon and start with a quick tour using the map just so you get familiar with the general area, and then we'll be getting straight on with how you can crush the content within. As you can see, we've got Romano in the middle. This is the smithing area where you can break down your Barronite chunks and hand in your Barronite shards. To the right of that, and amazingly, we've actually got a bank that non-members can use, so that's very convenient and useful for the majority of this dungeon. To the north of the bank, we've got the Camdozaal Vaults. We'll come to that later. To the east of that, we've got the Golem Caves, or the Golem Workshop, sorry. And again, we'll come to that later, but this is where you can awaken and fight golems. And then if we come to the other side of the dungeon, over on the west side, you've got the mines, the fishing area, and a big void, which I assume is just either a nice piece of visual effect to add to the immersion of the new content, or it's an area for future expansion that Runescape are already planning to do something with later down the line. Now I'm keen to get straight into the content, so let's get on with the first section. Being a dwarven settlement, I suppose it should have been obvious that mining would feature somewhere, and what we mine here is Barronite. Barronite is the currency of the dungeon, and it's the key to unlocking pretty much everything inside, so it's crucial that you manage to accumulate as much as possible. Now just to refresh your memory, the mines are in the northwest quadrant of the dungeon, just there on the map as you can see, and I'm going to give you a quick overview aerial shot so I can show you the two veins that I like to use, as well as some barrels where you can get pickaxes from. They're only bronze if you don't have a pickaxe. I recommend obviously being a lot higher, and I will assume that, as you can see on the screen now, I have around 50 mining and a rune pickaxe, so the rates that I give you now are going to be based off of my experience. If your equipment's different, your experience will probably differ. So I'm going to head over to my favoured area now, as you can see on screen, and I'm going to mine those ores. So what about the rates, I hear you ask? Well, you get 16 mining experience for each batch of shards mined, and 32 experience for each Barronite deposit. That's the big purple things. In total, I was able to mine around 400 to 500 shards and a full inventory of deposits, which is 27. That gives me a total of 8,500 experience per hour, and a grand total, once I've broken the deposits down, which you'll see shortly, of 700 shards. So once you have a full inventory, head back to the central area where Romano is. Deposit your shards by either clicking on them and then clicking on him to give it to them, or clicking on the forge directly. I believe there's an update so you can do that. Then you want to grab the hammer from the floor there and use the gold, brass, bronze looking anvil in order to break down your Barronite deposits. Breaking these deposits down will net you 10 smithing experience, so from an inventory of 27 deposits, that's 270 smithing experience, so around about 1080 smithing experience per trip. Equally, for each deposit, there is a small chance of receiving a rare item, such as the antique that has just appeared in my inventory there. These can be sold at the Varrock Museum for around 200 coins each. So I recommend banking them, and at the end, when you leave the dungeon, you can go sell them at a later date. Moving on then to the buffs. There are 6 buffs in total. The boost buff is temporary and only lasts an hour, while fishing, preparation, defense, mining, and luck are permanent. I recommend you get these unlocked as soon as possible, but start with the mining one because this will obviously increase the amount of Barronite you mine, making all the other ones easier to get, and then the luck one because that increases your chance of getting rare drops. In total then, you're probably looking at a couple of hours here. Once I'd obtained the mining boost, this upped the number of shards I mined from 3 to 5 to about 4 to 600, on average, which combined with the Barronite Deposits gave me around 800 shards a trip and boosted my mining EXP to about 10,000 per hour. Now the last thing I want to cover, and it should be popping up on the screen now, a nice pretty picture of the Barronite mace. When you are dismantling, breaking down deposits, there's a chance you will get the Barronite head from this task, and that's really crucial, and that's why you should also get the luck one, because it increases the probability of you getting this drop. This is a rare drop from this task and very much worthwhile the effort to get. I got around 10 of these while I maxed out the buffs, so you should get them plenty. They're not as rare as, say, the Barronite Guard, which is the rarest of the drops in my experience. The Barronite mace is something you should definitely aim for, and I will show you the details on how to assemble that at the end of the video. For now, just look for the Barronite head and be aware that each task in the dungeon generally yields a piece of the mace. With that, we've pretty much covered everything there is to know about the mining element of the dungeon. On to the next part.
I'm gone fishing.
Thank you, Mr. Ria. We have indeed gone fishing. One of the more unique elements to the Camdozaal dungeon is this link between fishing and prayer. So I'm going to firstly remind you where the fishing takes place. Generally, the best place is the southwest side of the dungeon. You can see it there on the map. And how this works is you basically fish, prepare the fish, and then offer it on an altar as an offering. Here's the aerial shots. You can see the 2 fishing spots that I recommend using and the small net available to grab if you didn't bring it. Once you're done with that, you bring it to this area I've just highlighted, and that's where you do the preparation. You grab a knife, you do the preparation, and you offer the fish. Just a quick word of warning before we get there, and a quick reminder if you've just jumped ahead or you've forgotten what we've said previously. Remember to get the buffs before you go to the fishing area. Not only is it important that you have the luck one, because this increases your chance of getting the Barronite Handle, but it also gives you a 10% chance of catching fish and a 10% buff on your preparation, i.e. not spoiling them during the cooking process. You don't really cook them, you just prepare them with a knife, but it's the same difference as far as experience is concerned. I'm going to grab the small net. Members, if you bring your big net, you'll be able to catch tetra and catfish. In terms of rates, what sort of fishing rates do we see? Well, guppies offer a lowly 8 fishing experience, cavefish offer 16, and tetra offer 24. Without the buff, you're talking 3.5k per hour. With the buff, I saw rates almost double, 30 to 40% higher at 6k per hour. Compare this to lobster fishing. At level 50, I can get about 200 lobsters an hour. That's about 18,000 experience. So this really isn't useful unless you're sort of low to mid level on the game, or you're here purely for the prayer, which we'll get onto in a minute. Similar to the mining, there is a chance of getting a rare drop. You can fish up a Barronite Handle, as you can see on the screen there. You will not see this on the video because I forgot to record it. No! Keep fishing until you get it. It shouldn't take too long. I got mine after about 2 hours. Similar to the mining, both of those took about 2 hours to get the Barronite head and the Barronite Handle. Having gotten our full inventory, we're going to move on to the next area. This is the cooking and prayer area, which, for RuneScape actually looks really cool. I love this fishing area. I think the artwork is great, and I think the area looks really cool. So when you get there, grab a knife and start prepping the fish. Once again, in terms of experience, guppies offer the lowest with 12, cavefish offer 23, and tetra offer 31. So we'll go through cooking rates. Again, without the buff, you're talking about 5k per hour cooking experience. With the buff, you're talking about 8k. My fishing is relatively high, around 50, so for you it may differ depending on your level. Obviously, the higher level, the more fish you're going to get. Buffed was again between 30 and 40% higher. Even though the buff says 10%, I'm aware of that. I'm just going off the figures that I actually fished. You may also notice that I've fished some Barronite Shards. You can fish Barronite while you're fishing, but it's a very low rate. You won't get a lot. Once you've prepared each of the fish, you then click on the altar. It asks you which fish you want to offer. You offer each fish in turn, and you get some prayer experience. For the third and final time, let's give you the experience rates. You get 4 prayer XP for a guppy, 7 for a cavefish, and 10 for a tetra. I managed to get 1.5k prayer experience without the buff. Once buffed, it went up to about 2.5k per hour, which is nearly 40% higher. Training prayer in free-to-play has always been a bit of a pain, and this doesn't necessarily make it less painful. It does, however, attempt to plug a much-needed gap in the free-to-play game mechanics by offering a reasonably effective AFK way to train your prayer. How effective that is, I leave to you. That basically covers the mechanics and features of the fishing area. Once you've got your Barronite Handle, unless you're sticking around to do some prayer training, it's time to move to the next area. But before we do, time for some Lumbridge trivia. Did you know that the Ghost Speaker amulet reveals several ghosts wandering in the Camdozaal ruins? This was news to me, and the ghosts do have some sort of interesting stories relating to the Imcanno dwarfs. To find out what they say, grab your Ghost Speaker amulet and give it a try. So in order to get the Barronite Guard, the third and final piece to the Barronite mace, we need to start crushing some golems. So as with all the other sections, I'm going to start by showing this area on the map. Here we go, this is the east side of the dungeon. Basically the entire east and southeast section is the golem workshop. And there's three types of golem that free to play characters can fight against. There's the body golems, they're on the screen now, that's the area. This south area that's empty, this is where the chaos golems will be, that's for members only. And then once the aerial shot pans back around, you'll see where the flawed and mined golems are. So to give you a rough idea, the body golems are 50, chaos are 70, and the flawed and mined are levels 13 and 30 respectively. Again, a quick reminder, make sure you've got the correct buffs activated. In this case, make sure you've got the defense one before you start fighting the golems. It just gives you an extra 5 defense, which obviously is a useful bonus to have, especially if you're going against the body golems or the chaos golems, which are obviously the slightly higher level ones. So make your way into the workshop. You can see I'm going to pop up the safe spot on the screen. You can safe spot them from the entrance with range or magic. If you're going to go melee, which I did predominantly, make sure you bring plenty of food. They don't hit particularly high, maybe 7s and 8s are their highest hits, but they will wear you down. As the golems don't have any defense bonuses to crushing damage, a crush weapon is also advantageous. So you can see I've got the sword there, but I later went back and switched out for a rune battle axe because that gives me extra crushing damage. As with the two previous tasks, there's a rare chance of getting the Barronite Guard as a drop. With the body golems, this is a 1 in 250 chance, and this took by far the longest of any of them, so around about 10 hours worth of killing body golems in order for the guard to drop. It's obviously random, you might find it quicker, you might find it not, but it was really starting to wear thin for me personally. So much so that I'm going to add my reaction, because I took a live reaction from when it dropped. Here it is. That's how much it meant to me when I finally got that damn guard. The only other real drop of note that's new is the golem cores, which you can take to the respective rune crafting areas. Each core, I believe, is worth 10 runes. Unless you're going to stick around and train on some more golems, it's time to move on to the vault. Please like the video and support my content. Thank you, noble knight.
Cave of Wonders.
Cave of Wonders?
So, welcome to what is probably my favourite part of the new dungeon, and it's a really cool mechanic that I suggest you try out. This is the vault, and the vault is basically a labyrinth with changeable gates. You can see on the map there, it's the northern part of the dungeon, and what I meant by changeable gates, you better see in the top-down view I'm going to show you now. You can see the blue arrows and the red X's. These gates change, so that each time you enter the vault, it'll be a different configuration. Sometimes it's favourable, sometimes it's not. You can see I've brought some energy potions. These are good for, obviously, keeping you run up. Generally, I've found that 100 run doesn't run out, as long as you don't bring any equipment with you. You can see on the screen there as well that it cost 1,000 Barronite to get in. It doesn't now, it costs 750 because they've updated. Now as soon as you get in, you get hit with this high impact music and the timer comes up on the screen. I really love this because it gets the adrenaline flowing, and it's just a really fun mechanic. It's 3 levels of boxes in the dungeon. You've got the simple, elaborate and ornate. The ornate ones are at the back, the elaborate are in the middle, and the simple are at the beginning. You want to be heading to the back for the ornate chests because these are the ones that drop the best stuff. To route plan, I suggest you zoom your camera right out so you can kind of see the labyrinth and try and aim for that back wall. As I said earlier, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. It's just pot luck. Generally speaking, I aim for about 3 chests and then to get out of there, or when the clock hits 20 seconds, I need to start heading back. To recap, I suggest you don't wear anything, don't bring any equipment for the weight. Bring some energy potions just in case you run out of run. It's never happened to me yet, but if you don't start the dungeon with 100 run energy, it might. Zoom the camera right out and pan up, and aim for the back wall. And one final piece of advice, don't be too greedy. If you zero out, you get nothing. Give it a good try because it's a really cool mechanic. It's really enjoyable, just a bit of fun. Unfortunately, if I'm going to critique the drops are not great. There are a few that are useful for maybe Ironman accounts, or as I've said, for the rest of the dungeon, low to mid-level characters may find some useful drops. If you're like a higher level, 60 plus say, in full rune already, you're not really going to find much of value. Remember that gates randomly change each run, just treat it as a bit of fun and enjoy it. We're going to switch to the next section and go through the drops from 5 runs that I did, as well as the final assembly of the Barronite mace. So what are my final thoughts and the rewards that you can receive from within the dungeon? Well, firstly, let's talk about the Barronite mace. Just use one of the pieces of the mace on Romano while you have all 3 present in your inventory. You're going to need 1.5k Barronite shards to assemble the mace. Remember to have the shards in your inventory. I'd already submitted the shards into the forge and had to go mine 1500 again, which takes another half an hour. So just don't make my mistake. Keep the actual raw shards in your inventory in order to make the mace. It took me the best part of 2 or 3 days to get the drops in order to assemble it. Damn that Barronite Guard. It's actually not a bad mace. Again, everything in this dungeon for me is aimed at low to mid-level players, so the mace is just better than a rune mace in that there's 1 extra crush damage, I think, the same strength, and 2 less prayer. So prayer-wise, the rune mace is better. Crush damage-wise, this has 1 more damage, and obviously against golems, this has extra abilities, so it's much better against the golems. Now, on to my rewards from the Vault Run. I did 5 runs, and this is how many chests I managed to get. I got 6 ornate and 6 elaborates. So I'm going to open them on the screen there. I'm not going to read out every single one. You can just see that for yourself. I mean, the rewards again, if you're a middling player, levels 20 to 50, some of these rewards are going to be of use to you. That is one thing I wanted to mention. If you're a hardcore Ironman, however, that Adamant Kite Shield I just got is actually useful. That is actually now my Hardcore Ironman's #1 shield, because as you know, if you've played Hardcore Ironman in the free world, it's quite hard, if not impossible, to get a rune kite. I think there's only Obor, the boss, the hill giant boss, who actually drops, has a small chance of dropping a rune kite, and that's probably the only way a free-to-play Ironman can get it. Now, if you look on the screen, you can see that I've used the price guide. After 5 runs, I averaged 3.3k per run. It's not fantastic. I think I'd have rather seen a harder vault with better drops than what we've got at the moment, which is a very sort of low to mid-level reward basis. I do like the Barronite mace. I think the Barronite mace is quite cool and actually quite useful, especially if you're going to train AFK-wise-ish in the Golem workshop. Overall, it's definitely fun. I love the visuals of this dungeon. It's really cool. You should check it out. Definitely do a few vault runs because they are really fun despite the loot not being fantastic. If you're a mid to low level player, get yourself there, do the quest and use it to level up because it's fun and it's different to the rest of Runescape. However, if you're sort of 50 to 60 plus, I'd do a few vault runs and I wouldn't spend a great deal of time in here. But it is fun. I've enjoyed the vault runs. And that is how you crush the Camdozaal Dungeon. If you've enjoyed this video, and it has been at all helpful, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I, the Lumbridge Knight, am at your service. So until the next time, fare thee well, brave adventurer.